Hi, I'm Ryan Reynolds. As owner of Mint Mobile, I couldn't wait to make my first commercial for Spotify listeners. I thought, I'll tell them to go to mintmobile.com/Spotify to get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Then I thought, they'll never believe the owner bragging, so I'll bring on a real Mint customer who knows it's premium wireless for just $15 a month. Then I thought, how will they know it's not just me acting as a customer? Then I thought, what if they don't think I'm a good enough actor to play a customer? Then I cried and went to bed. The end.
New activation and upfront payment for 3-month plan required. Taxes and fees extra. Additional restrictions apply. See mintmobile.com for full terms.
Empire.
Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Kahn Report wherever you get your podcast. You can also catch us on YouTube as part of Empire Media. That's AMPIRE. Always much appreciated when you tune in. Today, I'm joined by the Washington Post, Nicki Jhabvala, as we look ahead to the owners' meetings this week in Minnesota. We know that there's not going to be any vote taken on the Commanders. We learned that on Thursday, but there will be updates on the sale and the process. The owners will be updated on the sale and the process and what's going on. So we'll find out some information on that. But Nicki and I also talk mostly about what's going on the field. They also, the Commanders also start OTA practices this week. We'll be able to go out to the practice on Wednesday. I will do a practice update for you that will be out late Wednesday afternoon, early Wednesday evening. So look for that. So we'll talk a lot about the OTA sessions, etc. So stay tuned for that. Before I get there, I wanted to kind of update you on a couple things. One, there's not going to be any penalty for the Commanders on the whole Andrew Luck situation. Never thought that was going to be the case. Listen, it was a mistake I made in a story and mischaracterized what they did. I definitely know he was discussed, but they did not call him. They did not call his agents, and that part in the one story I knew that was the case, and I wrote it incorrectly. Anyway, but that's why the Commanders were never worried, and frankly, they weren't upset with the note. Trust me, folks, if it had been a big deal, I would have written more than 8 words on it. Instead, it was buried inside a story on Sam Howell and was only meant to highlight how their search was different this year than in 2022. That's why they were never worried. And like I said, I never thought anything would come with it. And now it's not going to. The Washington Post first reported that news. Anyways, now moving on. A couple things to note also before we get to my conversation with Nicki. We spoke with team president Jason Wright on Saturday at a flag football clinic out at Commanders Park. Anyways, on the approval process, he's not privy to all the information, but he did say that he didn't think it would take long and that it was moving in the right direction. He felt like it would be done soon. Now, in talking to some people later, it sounds like it could be late June, mid to late June into July. I wouldn't be shocked if it went further than that, but that was a timetable that was floated to me the other day, and so we'll see. But again, this thing there's been twists and turns all over the place. So, but that was a timetable from somebody who has a good idea of what's going on. And so again, just a general timetable. We'll see if it plays out that way. We also talked to offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy on Saturday, and I will have that video on Empire Media as part of the YouTube page. It was about 10 minutes long or so, the challenge of installing a new system. I will say this, he clearly finds it invigorating. And you can tell that he's a very energetic person to begin with. But when he's talking about this, you can tell that he's energized by being in a new situation after 10 years with the Chiefs. He is the guy running the show, and he's done a lot of things, I think, to implement his what he wants to get done. And I think the other thing is, I think they listened to him. So we talked about that. That's a video that'll be up on Empire Media at some point very soon. We also discussed Sam Howell, Jacoby Brissett, a few other challenges in installing a new offense, what some of the biggest challenges are, etc. So tune in go check out that on the YouTube page. Also, for ESPN.com, I wrote a story over the weekend on corner Emmanuel Forbes, talking to him about his 6 interception returns for touchdowns while at Mississippi State, went over each one and had him walk me through why he reacted the way he did on those particular plays. And the funny thing is, the whole lead of the story too was I brought out my computer to show him, like, just to go over the plays in case he needed to jog his memory a little bit. He did not. He told me, I don't need the video. I don't need the video. I know it in my head. And I think some of it too was part of the point of the story was to kind of highlight some of the different skill sets he has. The return game, for example, and you see that in a couple different of those returns, that he's just a different guy running the ball. Then you also see the smarts, and I think that was evident in the game against Kentucky, where he jumped a screen pass, but it also got into why he jumped the screen pass, and that to me is the big key. He also admitted on one of them he got really lucky. So anyways, that story is up on ESPN.com. Give it a listen. I'm going to try and play the audio for that at some point in the next week or so. So anyway, check that out. Now, here's my conversation with the Washington Post, Nicki Jhabvala. This conversation with Nicki was recorded on Friday.
Imagine a service that picks up your laundry and returns it the next day, washed, fluffed, and perfectly folded, all to your exact specifications. That's Happy Nest. We know that customer satisfaction is everything, which is why we only partner with the best laundromats in your neighborhood. And by using high-efficiency, eco-friendly washers and dryers, we'll get your whites white while keeping the planet green. Save time for the important things and leave the laundry to us. To get started, download the app or go to happynest.com.
Diablo 4 arrives on June 6th. As the forces of hell gather, only you can stand in their way. Journey across the expansive open world of Sanctuary. Choose from 5 powerful classes to fit your playstyle. Adventure with your friends in 4-player co-op with cross-play and cross-progression on all platforms. On June 6th, hell welcomes all. Pre-purchase now at Diablo4.blizzard.com. Rated M for mature. Tap the banner or visit this episode's page to learn more.
Did you know the largest ropes course and zipline park in the country is right here in the DMV? Located in the heart of Montgomery County, the Adventure Park at Sandy Spring combines climbing and ziplining to create an aerial obstacle course unlike any other. With challenges anywhere from 10 to 75 feet in the air, there is something for all skill levels. Looking for some family time or the perfect date night before football season starts? You can even climb and zip line under the stars. Would you rather keep your feet on the ground? Give axe throwing a try. With their projector systems, you can throw at traditional targets, play tic-tac-toe, Connect Four, or even hunt zombies. Listeners of this show can get $5 off any ticket by entering the code KEIM23DC at checkout. That's KEIM, K-E-I-M 23DC. So there you have it, folks. Climbing, ziplining, axes, food, and bonfires right in your backyard. The weather is warming up, so it's the perfect time to head outside and join the adventure at www.theadventurepark.com. That's www.theadventurepark.com and enter promo code KEIM23DC. Nicki, the big question, I guess, for this week, there's a couple things going on. We got the owners' meetings in Minnesota, and as we talk, we're recording this Friday. As people are listening to this, we'll be in Minnesota. Mm-hmm. The suspense was kind of taken out of that a couple of days ago, correct?
I would say a week ago. I mean, yes. we had heard that they would get updated about the state of the commander sale, but there wouldn't be a vote. And I think any belief of there possibly being one, I mean, yes, anything can happen. This is an unusual sale process, but these things don't happen overnight. It's not just, they vetted Josh Harris before, they can vet these guys easily. No, it's a complex deal. It's going to take some time. So it's, this is not totally out of the ordinary. In fact, this may be the one normal part of this process so far, is that it's going to take some time to vet, as they always do. I mean, the Broncos sale, which had a fairly easy structure.
The Walton family.
Yeah, they're worth a ton. Liquid assets, the whole thing. That took 8-9 weeks. Same with the Panther sale, 8-9 weeks. That's how long these things take.
Right, and you're right, because I heard the same thing when this purchase and sale agreement was announced. It was unlikely to vote in May at these meetings because of all the things you said, and I know people were like, why is it taking so long? Because there's at least 12 limited partners and they all have to be vetted. Mm-hmm. So, and this is, do you think this is kind of, and you're right, like this is a normal timetable, but I wonder too, like with the NFL, and we're going to get into, for people listening, we're going to get to OTA stuff in a minute. So just, settle down. But do you think this could be like more of the future of the NFL with these deals because of the size of the numbers we're talking about and how they want to keep these in families and not corporations?
Yeah. I mean, the NFL they have the most stringent ownership policies of the, 4 major US pro sports leagues. They want one individual, not a corporation, not a group, to have control. And that person, if outside of a family, needs to have at least 30%. And when you're talking $6 billion and up, that's a massive amount of money that they need to have personally. In families, the amount is much lower. The family as a whole needs 30%. But if you have multiple members, a person with control, I think it's at 5% or lower. So it's a lot easier. They've made it so they can keep these teams and within families. But that kind of structure is seemed to be fading out. I mean, the Broncos sold, that was, Pat Bowlen initially hoped to keep it in the family, but ended up selling. There have been squabbles within families before. We've seen it with the 49ers. I would say the Hunts and Rudings are the most well-run teams and that we've seen that, are owned by in that team structure or that family structure. But yeah, I mean, the league is going to have to make some concessions given the values of these teams. There's only so many Rob Waltons and Jeff Bezos around that can just kind of foot that bill like it's nothing. So you're going to need multiple partners. You may have to introduce private equity. You may have to introduce some other concessions to find people who can do this.
Right.
Because up until now, the NFL could always say, why do we need to make changes? There are people willing to buy that have the money, and if Jeff Bezos buys the Seattle Seahawks, then they can still say that. But after that.
But there are going to be a number of teams coming up over the next decade, possibly. So I think it's going to be something interesting to watch. And you may not be able to answer this, but it still seems like ultimately the Harris Group will be able to get approved. It's just going to take time. But is that the sense that you're getting?
Yeah, I mean, I think right now we'll see. There's a lot of it is, the part of it is semantics too. What the league views as debt. Right. Hypothetically, the Harris Group views as no, this is a more creative way of structuring a deal, of creating financing. So they need to kind of close those gaps there, but it's also a complex deal because of the seller,
Right.
There's the indemnification piece, which we've, written about ad nauseum. So, it's a complex deal. So yeah, I think there's some confidence among some that this will ultimately go through. We'll see. I think it's the only deal on the table. Right. So I think the league would very much like it to go through, but it's not finalized yet. There's still some things to work through. And this is a league, this is a franchise even that has seen bids fall through at the last minute. I mean,
the Milstein.
Yeah, I bring this up not to be like the ultimate, pessimist about this, and not in any way. I think you just have to be realistic about kind of what's going on, the complexity of this deal. And I know everybody wants it to go through and hopes it'll go through. And I think there are others on both sides, the league and the Harris camp, that certainly hope for the same, but it's just going to take some time.
Well, and I think the whole point is, so when people ask, why will it take a while? These are all the reasons why. Yeah. So that's why it's like, doesn't mean it's not going to go through. It's just explaining why it will take some time.
It's a massive deal.
Yeah,
there are stringent ownership policies. There are a lot of LPs, and the LPs, what's different about this one is, like you've seen, like the Broncos deal, they added LPs after the fact. They had a very liquid buyer who was able to purchase it outright. So you can add LPs and then vet the LPs at your leisure. You're not on that time constraint to get the full deal vetted. But when you got 12 or more that are part of the initial purchase, they all take vetting. And if you got ones where you don't know their immediate source of wealth, then it's going to take even longer. So, it's part of the process.
Yeah, it's $6.05 billion. That's a lot of money. A lot of zeros. It's a lot of zeros. That's more than Nicki and I make combined. So just so people understand.
Just slightly,
just a little bit. Let's get to the field. So we also have OTAs this week that we'll be able to go out to on Wednesday after we get back from Minnesota. What are some of the things that you're looking forward to seeing or interested to seeing this week?
I'd say just seeing how the veterans working with the rookies, but also seeing how Eric Bieniemy works with all of them, kind of seeing the sort of the control he has over the offense. We got a taste of it certainly with the rookies, but having the veterans back, I think that'll give another glimpse into kind of the dynamic there. Of course, seeing Sam Howell, connection with receivers. It's a weird period for me because, a lot of it, they're just, you can't do live drills. You can't do anything like that. So it's throwing on air. It's, you don't want to make too much of it. It's good to see the guys out there, kind of see the connection they're building, but, they're very limited in what they can do. I'm curious to see how they align guys, if they start to experiment, like, especially in the secondary, especially on the offensive line, where are they kind of testing different players out, where are they envisioning certain players? Like, will we see Sam Cosmi move, inside? Will he play tackle, both tackle and guard? How do they envision that arrangement? How are they going to arrange the, 6 essentially starting DBs they now have with, the addition of Quan Martin and Emmanuel Forbes. Those are things I'm looking for. And then, just seeing some veterans coming back. How does Logan Thomas look coming back? How does Cole Turner look? I know that there's high expectations for him. I'm trying to think of what else. Will Chase Young and Montez Sweat?
I was going to add, that was on the list too. And how important is it that they are there? And I know these are voluntary.
Yeah. It's voluntary. And I don't personally like to knock guys for not being there. It's their personal choice, but they have a lot at stake for them individually this year. And of course you would like to see all the leaders of the team there. And it looks like most of them have been there just based on the photos that the team has posted of OTAs throughout. But they've been absent clearly and for a few of them. So yeah, I mean, and we know it's important to Ron Rivera. We've learned that over the years. So it'll be interesting. I mean, it's not like they're learning a new scheme on defense. I'm sure there will be tweaks as there are every year, but they know the system. It just, be good to see him. And it'd be good to see how Chase looks, after the injury. He only had 3 games coming back. Right. And so.
And I know, and you kind of touch on it, if you want to consider yourself a team leader, then I think that's something you should be at. I think one of the things, Nicki, too, and I'm curious your thoughts on this, because they are losing also that week of OTAs. And I wonder, there's an impact on that. It seems like it would be more on the offense because they're trying to put in a new offense. You have a young quarterback, you have a new OC, versus the defense where you're running the same stuff essentially. And that zone match is in the second year, so you've already installed that. It seems like, do you agree with that? Like that the impact would be more on offense than on defense, and I kind of go along with the Sweat Young thing. It's, is it as important for them to be there as if they were on offense versus the fact that they're on defense? Yeah,
no, absolutely. I think, this is a whole new system. I know they try to kind of frame it as like, we're going to make a few tweaks. No, it's a whole new system, new terminology. Like it's similar concepts, but that's football in general. Right. Everybody kind of runs similar concepts, right. But it's a new playbook, new terminology, new coordinator, new play caller, new quarterback, new interior lineman. It's a lot of new. And they have limited time already in the offseason, given the new rules in the CBA. So to lose that week is going to be tough. It really is. this is where I'm really glad they do have those 2 days of joint training camp practices with the Ravens, because I think that's always a really good gauge to see where a team is at. They can go against each other for the longest time, but at some point, they know the other side better than anybody else, so to see them go up against another team, I think will give us a really good glimpse at kind of where they are and learning the new offense, where Sam is at, just building that connection and, what they hope to achieve with the new offense, et cetera. So, I think that week will be a lot for the offense.
I couldn't agree more. And I think it's led to some incorrect decisions the last couple of years, or waiting until the fourth game of the season to realize that certain players are in the wrong spot or can't play or whatever, because you're not seeing that in the summertime because you don't hit in training camp the way you used to. So you're not getting those live looks like they used to. And also the other thing, Nicki, too, is, usually you get that week of mini camp, the mandatory mini camp, where they always put down 3 days on the sheet and then they cut it to 2. I don't think there's going to be any cutting this year because you need that practice.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So, yeah.
And the other thing is going back to, because we did get a glimpse of Bieniemy during that rookie mini camp.
Yes.
I've given my thoughts on it. What did you think?
I mean, I thought he was as advertised. I mean, we've heard about, he's very vocal, very focused, very detail oriented. And you could see that. I mean, he was you could hear him from, 200 yards away. He wants his players to really take command. See what I did there? Especially in the huddle. I mean, he's hard on guys, but, with reason, I think change is good, but it really is interesting to kind of see him kind of go to work there. In a lot of ways, it's a very different style from Scott Turner and others. And that's, and maybe not others. I mean, you see other coordinators who are like that, more vocal, stronger presence. And I think that's good. I think they need that.
I do too. And it's funny because I mentioned the way, after the rookie minicamp about how he kind of got on some people. And there is a difference though, because like, if you're just yelling to yell, you become ineffective.
Right.
He certainly did it to make a point.
Right. He's always yelling something that he wants to see. He's not just yelling at somebody for the sake of yelling at them, Yeah. I mean, one example is like, when we heard this repeatedly is, I put the center in the huddle for a reason. He needs to take a man. Like that's, we heard that many times, telling, the rookie centers they had there to, really get in there and kind of take control of things.
But it's funny because, and it is a different style, but I think one thing that I'm curious to see is the impact on the details of their jobs. And I always talk about, you get caught up in as a play caller, and that's obviously very huge for an OC. But if you can get him to adhere to the details of the position, that makes a big difference. And that seems to be what he's maybe more about. Or a lot about, I should say.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
We also got a chance to see Emmanuel Forbes in that one. Yes. What'd you think?
I mean, it's hard to glean too much from, rookie minicamp practice. They're in shorts, there's not a whole lot of live action there. The most live action is like 7-on-7 and a couple reps and, full team. So you don't get to see him going against, the veterans, but, he's an instinctive player, a quick player, very thin player. But I thought he looked good. Very curious to see how he looks going up against the veterans, going against the first team offense. So I mean, I think he's impressive for sure.
That's the thing. That's one of the things I'm looking forward to seeing is when he goes up against those, because that's a good group of receivers to help get him ready, Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the things, because they're also, he's a very aggressive corner. And I think they're going to help him learn a few things during camp. And I think it's a good group for him to go against, because like Terry is a guy that will share I think a lot of them will share information, but I think he was somebody who benefited from going up against veteran corners when he was a rookie. So, I mean, how much will that help him, do you think?
Oh, I can only help him. And he, in the short time we've gotten to know him, he seems like a guy that wants to be coach hard and will absorb that information. And, I think Terry's a great guy for anybody on the roster. but especially the corners who have to face him, and because he's a detailed receiver. Right. So they'll learn a lot and he'll share a lot. He's a good guy to go against. So yeah, no, I'm also curious to see, if they bring in anybody else, like if they have any other bigger receivers, how does he handle those? There's so much talk about his weight and his size, and how much will that affect him if it affects him at all? Maybe we'll get a better glimpse of that. Certainly, again, and those joint training camp practices in Baltimore, I think that'll be a good gauge too.
Sure. And then how does he offset that? Because there's always a way, like he's got strengths that he can offset that with, and they have to go. So how do you handle that? But that is something to work. What about in terms of the quarterback situation now? Because you brought up Sam Howell, and they also have Jacoby Brissett. And all we've heard is that the only guarantee for Howell is he goes into these situations as the number one. What are you expecting? What are you anticipating seeing from him? And then do you think there's going to be a true quarterback competition?
I mean, that's always the question. I mean, they've said in the past that we're going to have a quarterback competition, and, that other guy doesn't take a single snap with the first team. I mean, I think a true competition would only help Sam. He does only have one start. And I think Jacoby Brissett is absolutely a guy he can learn from. He is that type of player who is known to be a good mentor, a guy that will help younger players in that room come along. He's also going to compete, and he's coming off probably the best year of his career in Cleveland. I thought he was undoubtedly the best quarterback they had last year. Even Deshaun, when he came back. So, I think a true quarterback competition is necessary. I think it can only help Sam. But will it be? We'll see. I know everybody has convinced themselves that it will be Sam. And I know that, and they have said, we will give him every chance to win that job. And I hope he does go out there and win it for his own sake, but they haven't guaranteed anything. Correct. And so we'll see. And I think Jacoby Brissett is an experienced veteran. He's seen a lot more, which is not anything to Sam's. That's not his fault. He's just been in the league longer. He's seen more. So it could be interesting.
And that's where I'm at too, that it's not that I don't think Howell could develop. It's just that I think you have a staff that also has to win now, right away. And you have who's going to give you the best chance to get off to that good start and all that. But, I also, Jacoby's a professional quarterback. I mean, and, so he's going to look good now. And I think guys are going to like that.
Right.
But when you look at this situation, like what kind of things might you look for with Howell? Because obviously some of it's going to be growth. Jacoby could look better when we go out there because he's more experienced. But how are you going to kind of, just from your own personal standpoint, how will you assess where you think this is going, and is Howell getting it, or how does he look?
I mean, the two things that stand out to me always, especially with a younger quarterback, is body language and footwork. Is the footwork the way it needs to be? And we're looking from the sideline with the coaches will take a more detailed view. They'll be asking him things that, maybe we don't necessarily see. But I always think you can tell if the footwork is fluid, if he looks comfortable. And does he appear confident? Does he feel like, he's missing everything? Is he hanging his head? These are little things, and it feels sort of cliche for, a writer to point out these things, but I think you can kind of glean a lot from the way a young player looks out there on the field in terms of his confidence. Does he feel comfortable? Does he feel like he's learning? Does he feel like he's, the coach is just riding him for the sake of riding him, or is he learning stuff? Is he picking up? Can he see the difference between, a mistake he made on one play and how he corrected it on the next, those little things. So, I mean, those are the types of things I'll be looking for. I mean, again, it's with limited contact in OTAs and even training camp, you kind of have to pick where you really focus in on, just because you can't fully replicate a game anyway.
Right.
But, you got to bear in mind that they are, most of the time going against air, they're being told to do certain things, and it may work out, it may not. So
right. And I think the footwork thing is big, just because that was the number one thing that we heard about throughout from the time they drafted him to during the season and all that was just kind of matching it up. Now he's having to match it up with a different offense, even though, as you said, the concepts are the same. It's really about the terminology a lot for him, but you
West
still
Coast,
have,
calls.
oh man. But you still have to match up the footwork, and it has to, so I think it's as much like, is he getting the ball out? Is he hitting that plan step and getting the ball out? Is it, is it on time? Is it in rhythm? I think those are some of the things that you can see. And then to me, with how it's about measuring growth, like where does he look when we're not making the decision. So it doesn't matter what we think, but from their perspective too, but it is like, okay, this is how he looked on May 24th or whatever the day is going to be out there. This is how he looks at the end of, and the last mini camp. And is there a difference? Because he did
want to see progress. You want to see an upward trajectory. Yeah.
Right. And I thought we saw that last summer from him, because early on, it's like you kind of, he didn't look great. And I thought by the end of camp, he looked a lot better, so, but I guess, what would be a true quarterback battle to you? What would it look like to you?
Split reps with the first team. Yeah.
I
mean, that's really it.
That. We haven't.
We haven't.
We heard about it.
Right. We've heard about it twice, really. We've said, they've said there'd be open competitions, and there's really not. So, we'll know pretty quickly if it's a real competition.
I also wonder too, Nicki, if they look at it as like, we're going to, if they say we're going to give Sam every chance, let him get all the reps with the ones, because what Brissett can do, and he's a little bit more experienced. So maybe, you could wait and give him that time.
But it's still a a new offense for Brissett. It's still a new team. He's got to get acclimated too. So
it's a new right, and I'm pretty sure he's been in a system like this. He's been in a few of them.
Some version of the West Coast, yes.
Right, but it is a new situation for him that he has to learn these guys too. But that's why I wonder. It'll be interesting to see how they handle it, and at what point do they decide, like, okay, and it may be because it's maybe less about how and more about Brissett and how he looks than it is. So like if that develops that way, I think it could be say as much about Jacoby as it does about Sam.
Sure. Absolutely.
Well, Nicki, that's it. There's not much else to talk about. So we'll get a chance to be in Minnesota, and then we'll see these guys, get more speculation and conjecture about what's going to happen over the next couple months. And that's what we do. There you go.
Can't wait. Let's go.
All right, Nicki. Thanks, Nicki.
Of course.
Here's a little song I wrote about how to grow delicious herbs. Just use Miracle Grow Potting Mix. It's not the longest song, because that's all you need to know. Just plant your herbs in Miracle Grow Potting Mix and you're set. That's basically it. Then it's next stop, Grow Town. You'll grow healthier, stronger herbs versus unfed plants. Satisfaction guaranteed. Miracle Grow. All you need to know to grow.
So, you open Google Chrome on your phone, you're hunting for a super rare first edition vinyl of a band you're obsessed with, when you're supposed to be working. But this site you tapped on seems pretty shady. And Daryl from IT just jumped up from his desk. Oh no, he's coming your way. It's a good thing built-in malware protection keeps you safe and sound. Not from Daryl, though. Sorry. There's no place like Chrome. Download Google Chrome on your phone.
That's it for this episode. Thanks to Nicki for joining me, and thank you, as always, for tuning in. I'll be back with another episode, probably from the owners' meetings on Tuesday. If not then definitely one on Wednesday after we get a crack at the first OTA practice open to the media this season. Talk to you next time.